Hello guys, it's Wolfeos here, and I am back with the new Campaign Trail game, and today we are doing the election after the one we played last something, I don't know. I meant to say last video, but my brain decided to not work, and I tried to think of a specific time zone, and I cannot for the life of me remember when I uploaded that video. But it's been a while, so yeah, I figured we would get right back into it. So these can take a bit, and now we're getting into the two candidate campaigns. So we're going to do one with the winning candidate and then one with the losing candidate. So for this one, John Adams won the presidency, Thomas Jefferson lost. So in this video, we will be playing as Adams, and then next video, we will play as Thomas Jefferson. So in 1796, President Washington has declined to serve a third term as President of the United States. As Washington steps down, the divide between pro and anti-Washington political factions grew into two separate political parties, the Democratic Republicans and the Federalist. Both parties will be running multiple candidates in hopes that the offices of Vice President and President will be filled by members of the same party. Only 9 of the 16 states vote for the president by popular vote. These states will be the key states. Adams and Jefferson need to focus on winning. So, yeah. Key thing to know about old elections, I don't remember what it was that fixed them, but originally it was the two candidates that got the most popular votes. The one that got, or not popular votes. Popular votes a different thing than what I was thinking of. The two candidates that got the most electoral votes would get the presidency and vice presidency. So, for example, if it occurred now, we would have President Biden with his most electoral votes, followed with Vice President Trump with the second most. So that's how it would work. In modern day, it would be very weird. It wasn't very efficient. But yeah, that was how it went, and they spammed candidates. But yeah, that's a bunch of historical info dumping. So yeah, we will be playing as John Adams. He was a Federalist, and yeah, he was the current Vice President of the United States under Washington. But he is seen as disconnected from the American public and not committed to the Federalist ideals by members of his party. So yeah, Adams is in a bit of a tricky position. I don't think he got along well with Alexander Hamilton, who was like the icon of the Federalist Party, and he was more of an elitist, so he wasn't seen as like one of the common men. So yeah. But we're running as him, and we're running with his vice president candidate of Thomas Pinckney, who is also a Federalist from South Carolina. And although de jure running as a separate candidate, Adams is the obvious Federalist favorite. Hopefully, Pinckney will be able to receive the second most electoral votes and become vice. So, yeah, it's stuff like that. So, as people stump across the country in your name, what do you want to emphasize in your campaign? So, I need to stick by Washington's side in public letters and appearances. We can win by writing off his popularity alone. I need a campaign pointing out the economic stagnation promoted by the Democratic Republicans and Jefferson's association with radical groups in France. And Jefferson is very popular. I'd like to avoid direct attacks on Jefferson and focus on the Democratic Republicans as a whole and Aaron Burr. So Aaron Burr, fairly unpopular politician at the time. And Jefferson's association with the radical groups would be the revolutionaries during the French Revolution, who were very, very violent. So, that's some background. But I think the winning strategy here is just to stick with Washington. George Washington is immensely popular. We can basically just write his popularity if we play our cards right. So, yeah. Please select an answer before continuing. I did select something, didn't I? I think I did. Oh well. Your running mate and fellow presidential candidate is disliked by northern legislators, and many of them are planning to vote for your candidacy as well as somebody else. This would make it very likely that Thomas Jefferson will be serving as your vice president if you are elected. We could strike a deal with southern legislators on issues to gain the support of an Adams Pinckney ticket, but this may cost us a lot up north. So, we can send Pinckney to work out a deal with key South Carolina legislators, because we believe we could swing South Carolina to our side, and I don't really doubt it, since that, the people that cast votes for the Electoral College back then were very easily swayed by politics. Or, I've played this a couple times, so I kind of know that these type of strategies do work sometimes, but I don't think South Carolina is worth it. I don't want to lose support in the North, because currently we are actually winning by quite a large margin, so I don't want to compromise my standing in the North for South Carolina. So Pinckney is just going to need to stick to his own campaign. What is your opinion on the Whiskey Rebellion? So, the Whiskey Rebellion, they taxed whiskey, some farmers rebelled, George Washington rolled in with an army and shut it down. So I would repeal the whiskey tax. However, Washington made the right decision to put down a revolt against the federal government. My administration would not repeal the whiskey tax, and it is only that it don't. Yeah, cannot speak. It is only just that the traitors be punished as such. The Whiskey Rebellion was a justified and natural reaction to unjust taxation as pioneered by the Federalists. I see several things wrong with this one, primarily the fact that we are a Federalist. These rebels had no respect for the rule of law. I'm glad they were suppressed. Trying to think. Let's see. Whiskey's Rebellion. Okay, so it seems like opinions are kind of all over the place, except in the South, which very much opposes it, it would seem. But I don't know which side they're opposing, and I really don't want to lose Pennsylvania. So I'm just going to say these rebels had no respect for the rule of the law. Glad they were suppressed. So no opinion on the whiskey tax, just the fact that, we shut down a rebellion. So I think that's the best answer we can give without ever giving an answer. Like politicians. So to what extent should the voting rights of Americans be guaranteed? I will always stand by the idea that this is an issue left to the states. I find it disagreeable with Republican principles that some states should not elect their electors by direct popular vote. All white males of 21 or older should be guaranteed this right. State legislators, as elected by the people, will always be the form of elector allocation closest to the best interests of the people. That was the confusing electoral thing I was rambling about before with the deals. Yeah, state legislators were, I think, easier to sway. But other than that, I would not interfere with local voting laws, but I would advise all states adopt a system with property-owning white men of age 21 voting and paying a poll tax similar to that of Virginia. We don't want to back Virginia. It's not our state, and it is a state Jefferson is from, so we are not going to back that. Don't want to do that, because that's kind of out of touch. That's denying popular vote, so we don't want to do that. But we also don't want to completely throw it out. I think the best thing to do is just say that this is an issue left to the states. And yeah, that seems to have been the right call. You were once reported as suggesting that the office of the presidency should be a hereditary position in order of Washington's family. What do you mean by that? Is this a joke? These statements are obviously falsified. I'll stand by the statement, even if I may not have said it. Washington is broadly popular. Yeah, he's not popular enough to be a monarch, though. From what I hear, I think, had he chose to run for a third time, he might have actually lost the state, because he's one of the only presidents to win all, electoral points. But, yeah, I wouldn't say that he was ever going to be popular enough to be a monarch, and even then, his popularity was already sort of starting to break up. So, we're just going to say these statements are false. What's your opinion on the Atlantic slave trade? So, I am a supporter of free trade. I would continue the importing of slaves into America, or slavery is a moral wrong. I would prohibit the importation of slaves into the United States. North, not as pro-slavery. Yeah, we don't have anything to gain in the South, so slavery is a moral wrong. Not to mention, never mind, I was right. Where was I? What's your opinion on tariffs? I would prioritize lower tariffs to promote free trade and advocate liquor and poll taxes to generate revenue. Higher tariffs keep taxes lower and are a good way to fund the federal government. I support them. Or tariffs are a good revenue source but should always be kept low. Federalist position is higher tariffs, so that's what I'm going to go with. Just because, it's good to stick to the party line. We need to lay down a solid attack on Jefferson. What do you suggest? Let's tie Jefferson to deism and the Jacobins in France, or let's call Jefferson a coward for his lack of military action during the Revolutionary War. That, I think, would backfire, because I don't know if he ever got involved in the war, not to mention Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence, so not a good attack. So we're just going to tie him to France, which is all over the place, and it doesn't seem like, most of the North is pro-British, so Britain and France can't get along, so we're just going to go with this. What's your opinion on Jay's Treaty, which I'm pretty sure is this weird... It was something to keep us neutral with Britain. I don't really know the specifics of it, but it kept us neutral. So, I support Washington's decision. The treaty brought the USA away from war with Britain. I strongly denounce this treaty. Closer ties to Britain are the beginning of a downward spiral to aristocracy as advocated by John Adams. Yes, I'm sure that would be a winning message. I support Jay's treaty because it prevented a war. However, I am not looking to create closer ties to Great Britain. Yeah, let's just say we support Washington's decision. That'd be the best for a vice president of his, so yeah. The French ambassador to America has endorsed Thomas Jefferson for president and U.S. minister to France. James Monroe has suggested a Jefferson presidency would promote good relations between the countries. What do you have to say about this? This proves to me that the Jeffersonians got their way. They'd rather have the United States become a province of France rather than an independent republic. Washington warned us about foreign influence. This was a disgraceful comment on the French ambassador's part, or I agree with Monroe's statement entirely. This, I think, would be too strong of an attack. Politics, I don't think, was that heated to the general public, so we're not going to do that. But we are just going to say, that was a bad comment on the French ambassador's part. In his farewell address, President Washington announced the creation and existence of political parties. The rivalry Jefferson and Adams certainly has created two political parties in America. What do you have to say about this? I disagree with Washington on this point. That isn't a good idea. We don't want to disagree with Washington. It is a shame that we are turning down the path of factionalism, but I would always put a republic before political parties. That's a good response. So that's what we're going with. So, actually, let's see here. Okay, we want to keep going British, but I also think I've got a chance to win Virginia. So we're going to see if we can invest in those in later answers. But who should be America's primary trading partner? The answer to this should be a surprise to nobody. I believe Britain should be the primary trade and diplomatic ally to the United States. They are our closest neighbor willing to trade and negotiate with us. Or it could be France, because they are the only other free government in the world at the moment. Yeah, we're going to say with Britain, that's our party stance. That's what our base wants. So yeah, we're going Britain. How do you want to connect yourself to George Washington? I've had my disagreements with Washington, but I respect his instrumental role in the founding of his republic. It was a great pleasure to serve under him. Or, Washington was one of the great men of this age. I wish he would have chosen to serve a third term. Under Washington's presidency, we signed Jay's Treaty, caused the Whiskey Rebellion, and created the first national bank. With all due respect to the man in his presidency, painted a bad future for this country. That's definitely, those are, going to be tied to us since we were the vice. So, yeah, no, not going to happen. Or, George Washington was a respectable and truly good man. I wish him the best in his retirement at Mount Vernon. That's what I'm going to go, just because we don't want to say that we disagreed with him, and we don't want to pressure him into a third term. So, yeah. How would you respond to criticism from the Jefferson camp calling you a monarchist at heart? I would not consider myself a monarchist, but would consider massive changes in the U.S. government to make the government more akin to an aristocracy. Definitely not. We don't really need to address this question one way or the other. Let's just run our campaign and get our own views out. Or, you want to call the first elected vice president of the United States a monarchist. My record speaks for itself. I think that's the best one to go for. Yeah, and that seemed to have dissuaded the attack pretty dang well. Do you believe the actions of the French revolutionaries are justified? There was violence in France just as there was violence during our own revolution. I support the actions of the French revolutionaries entirely. I support France, but I'm disgusted and unhappy with the dubbed Reign of Terror, which is basically where they went around cutting everybody's heads off if they thought that they weren't Democrats. Or, not Democrats as in the political party, I meant, wanted democracy. Basically, they thought if you weren't very radical democracy, you should get your head cut off, because apparently you're not thinking straight. I don't speak French brain thoughts. What am I saying? I am very tired. Oh yes. I disavow the violence in France. How can France be called an ally when they murder their own people? Now, So, the North is very pro-British. However, I think we've got them in the bag. So I think we can actually reach out for Virginia now. Because I don't think Adams actually won Virginia. And it would be just icing on the cake if we could take Jefferson's home state. So we're going to say, I support France, but I'm disgusted and unhappy with the Reign of Terror. Which somehow turned them more blue. Don't know how that happened, but okay. What's your opinion on the First National Bank? I have very little respect for Alexander Hamilton, although I concede his national bank helped save this nation. Disavow the First National Bank completely, fought since the beginning, or I support Hamilton's national bank. I do think Adams and Hamilton had some sort of feud going on. I don't really know what it was all about, but we're just gonna say I support Hamilton's. Or he wasn't very popular in Virginia, and I really want that state, so we're just gonna say very little respect for him, but approve of his bank, which does not support us apparently. Okay. What do you think of Thomas Jefferson as a person? Thomas Jefferson and I were friends for a very long time. I hold him in high regard. Our divide is political. Or, though once friends with Jefferson's recent statements about God and France, I see little hope for a personal friendship between us. Yeah, so many grammatical errors because I cannot talk. Oh, we're just gonna keep it friendly, so yeah, it's just a political divide. How much would you like to attack Aaron Burr in this race? Burr is unpopular. I see no little loss in attacking him. Or Aaron Burr is a non-issue in this race. I'd like to ignore him in favor of attacking Jefferson. We don't want to attack Jefferson. We're just gonna attack Burr. So, yeah. Though, yeah, we're kind of losing some popularity in Pennsylvania, which is a bit odd. Would you ever support an amendment abolishing slavery in the United States? Without a doubt, support this amendment. No, abolition was not that popular during this time, and yeah, we're not gonna trigger some political crises by saying that. Of course, not as way too southern of an answer. So we're just gonna say perhaps if slave owners were compensated and emancipation was gradual, with former slaves returning to Africa, perhaps. So yeah, yeah, we're regaining popularity in Pennsylvania. We should be fine. Should the USA military intervene in the French Revolutionary Wars? No, and I'd be in favor of supporting the British over the French in these wars. No. I believe diplomatic and economic aid to the French would be more viable for a country than direct military intervention. No. We don't want to back France. Of course not. We are not ready to engage an enemy like this and would rather see the USA out of a war. Okay. Or yes, I don't know how we could claim to fight for freedom if we don't support revolutions around the globe. Definitely not. So we're just going to say, of course not. We would rather see the USA out of a war. Okay, yeah, we're not winning Virginia, I don't believe. I have a hard time believing that we could. Do you believe that some revenue should be set aside from our tariffs to finance internal improvements, such as canals and roads? I think the Federalists were... I know the Whigs were in favor of this, but the Whigs, I think, shared a decent bit of political ideology with the Federalist. So I'm gonna say I would support this measure. States' rights are moderate. Hmm. Yeah, actually, we might want to keep it moderate. I believe the debate on the constitutionality of this issue should be settled. So yeah, that's the best we're gonna get, I think. Yeah. No harm, no foul. And the most damning attack against you has been when you defended the British Constitution by insinuating the American Constitution should contain the good parts of the British Constitution. I think that's a typo. What do you have to say about that? This is seriously damning. I'm not sure how anyone who calls themselves American could support the so-called Constitution of the British. That doesn't make sense. I would stand by the statement. It clearly doesn't ignore the problems with the British Constitution, but it reasonably recognizes it has parts we should be taking from. Or the War of Independence was about representation in Parliament. Taking after the British government makes sense to me and in line with the goals of our own revolution. That, I think, works. Yeah, okay. So, Pennsylvania and Virginia are pretty dang tied up. Pennsylvania is 15, Virginia is 21. John Adams, while serving as vice president, has attacked the character and ability of popular Federalist Alexander Hamilton. What do you have to say about that? I'd like to release further statements denouncing Alexander Hamilton. I've always hated him, and reminding the public of the bipartisan dislike of him will divide the Federalists. We're not going to divide our own party. I'd rather make no further statement on Hamilton, or I'll try to move past these old statements and praise Hamilton. He served our country well as Secretary of Treasury. We can probably say that. That might bring Pennsylvania closer. Yeah, I think it did. Actually, it brought Virginia closer, too. How do you feel about electing the president via the Electoral College? I'd prefer a direct popular vote system to elect the president. I prefer a transition to a parliamentary system like Britain to elect our highest office, or I support the Electoral College. Yeah, we're just gonna back the Electoral College. Okay, Pennsylvania is securely ours. Is there a particular state where your party should concentrate its resources and most talented speakers as the election draws near? There's almost no chance of it happening, but I really want to go for Virginia. So, yeah. Because I really want to see if we can one-up the historical election. Because I don't think Adams got Virginia. So, yeah. Yeah, Pennsylvania was ours, so that's a good sign. Because I think all we needed was the North. So, yeah, congratulations. You won this year's election. Click OK to view the rest, or skip to the final results. We're going to just skip. So, congratulations. You have won the 1796 election. The Federalists control both chambers of Congress, and war with France is now only a matter of time. That didn't happen historically, unless you count that one really, really odd not proxy war. It was some weird type of war. I don't really remember what happened. It wasn't anything like full blown, but yeah. I do know that John Adams did get elected president. He did some okay stuff in foreign policy, and then he signed the Alien and Sedition Acts, and those shot his presidency down for the next campaign. So he's a bit of a 50-50 on whether or not he was a good president, because he did like some good things, but then some other also really bad things. So yeah, he was an okay president, and I think not the best, but he did okay politically, I think, other than the whole Alien and Sedition Act. But I could talk about that later. So yeah, he was definitely a president of all time. So yeah, I don't really have much else to say on the John Adams side of things for this election. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed, like and subscribe. If you didn't, comment down below what I can do better. And yeah, I will see you guys later. Also, we didn't have a shot at Virginia. We were 3% off. So yeah. Anyway, I will see you guys in the next video.